Welcome to the Believe in Your Office podcast, sponsored by Boomerang and Common Sense Office Furniture, the podcast where we explore what makes workplaces work. Every episode features candid conversations with leaders, business professionals, and workplace experts who've been in the trenches. They share the real stories, the wins, the failures, and the lessons learned about culture, teamwork, and leadership that actually matter. Let's get into it.
Welcome, everybody, to the Believe in Your Office podcast. I'm your host, Josh Smarjassi. I'm here with Paul Gowens, a great business development connector and friend of mine. Believe in Your Office is a podcast dedicated to exploring the evolving world of office culture, teamwork, and leadership. Whether you're leading a team, navigating workplace challenges, or trying to create a culture where people thrive, this show is your go-to resource. Each episode features candid conversations with industry leaders such as Paul, business professionals, and experts who share their experiences and advice on building productive, collaborative, and inspiring workspaces. So, without further ado, welcome everybody. And Paul, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I'm a Greater Philadelphia resident. Been here for over 30 years. I actually love the Philadelphia area. I think it's a great space for professionals that actually want to connect and grow their careers. I think it's actually one of the best places, especially for young kids. I have a daughter just starting college. I think it's a great place for anybody that wants to be upwardly mobile to start. I think it's not stilted as a hub, so young people can have some conversations with accomplished people. But I think it's also has its elite, where if you work hard and you're able to be of service, that you can enter those spaces. So I thank you for having me, Josh. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and listen, I second everything you're saying there. I've had many conversations throughout my relationships with not only works but friends as you know, oh, you live in the Philadelphia, market in South Jersey. It's kind of cold there in the winter, do you like it? Like, how come you were born and raised there? You have many friends who, kind of change when they're where they grow up and then when they actually settle down. But I agree. I always tell people it's a great space. It offers so much opportunity. 2 hours from anywhere that you want to be,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely.
2 hours from anywhere.
Absolutely.
2 hours from New York. 2 hours from DC. 2 hours to
Absolutely.
Florida. You know, you're 6 hours to the West Coast. Okay, so that's a little bit, but you're also 6 hours from Europe, right? So it's such a great spot to
Absolutely.
to grow, raise a family, and have like a lot of opportunity. So no, thanks again
And,
for
and then as you move further out into some of our counties, they're spacious, they're scenic, they're beautiful, and so you can get that suburbs feel, and to your point, be less than 20 minutes away from downtown Philly. So yeah.
yeah. All right. Well, we usually start off, this for those of you who listen, we usually start off with some conversations or some top five questions or fast five we call it, and then we'll see, where the conversation evolves. I can already tell Paul and I will just kind of be going in many different directions this morning, but
I appreciate that.
yeah. So I guess my fast five, like first thing that comes to your mind, like what's your favorite place in the Philadelphia area to take a meeting?
I'd say Lock Bar.
Where?
Lock Bar. It's a
Okay.
seafood restaurant, Broad and Spruce.
Yeah,
Broad and Spruce, Broad and Locust. So
we were talking a little bit about that before we started the show here about how you love to sit down and just kind of, talk with whoever you meet at the bar and see what, what you guys don't have in common or how you can't connect.
yeah, our lives are attached to moments, right? So in this moment that you and I are sitting here, they're pregnant with everything that led up to this moment. The things that are on our mind, our kids, our families, whatever. And same thing when I'm sitting across from a person or next to a person at Lock Bar talking about, our next moves together, how it can be a benefit to them. Everything's leading up to there. Their wife is pregnant. This thing helps forward that. One of the greatest deals I've ever done, we're going back 15, 20 years. I actually did a real estate deal. And the guy said he can send money back to his family. He said that solved 80% of his problems. And I think if you, think about yourselves and like 80% of your problems are rectified by this couple grand that we made on this deal. And so, things like that kind of made me kind of want to fall more into ways that I can serve people through business. So yeah.
Right. That's awesome. Yeah, no, and that is a crazy stat. I mean, to think about, but and meeting with people in general, we were talking about that earlier about how, you know, there's so many great things. I mean, obviously, the backbone of the Believe in Your Office podcast here, how do we really make sure that people believe in the office? And I think,
Yeah.
we were saying that you when we work remotely, this is great because we're able to do way more for a quicker period of time. We have back-to-back meetings, or you can connect with people who are in different areas, like we just said. West Coast, DC, New York. You don't have to drive. You can do a lot more things. But
Sure.
having
Sure.
those face-to-face moments where a lot of things really are come to light through inflection, and really through, jokes are told differently, things are received differently. I think it's
Absolutely.
important.
Absolutely.
I think it's
Absolutely.
important to really see that, with someone, and you can react totally different, like a lot of times you're not going to see that if you're just on a camera.
Yeah, and you know what? When I got the invite to this podcast, and looking into what you guys do, I really went back to sweet moments in my career, and those, even though they were sweet now, they were really tough. When you look at kind of like horror movies, when people are in a dream sequence and like chairs look like they're 15 feet high, or couch,
Yeah.
going for my first job, going for interviews, everything looked humongous. The moment looked terrifying, and again, I mean, that's why, just kind of sidebar, that's why winners win. That's why you look at your
Hmm.
your Kobe's, your Michael, because while those moments look
Hmm.
huge, they deliver. But
Hmm.
um the office chairs, the aesthetic of the office sets such a precedent on how I engage the people I was meeting with. And so I
Hmm.
think what you do in terms of providing office furniture is actually so essential. There's other places, if you walk in and the furniture is ratty, or it doesn't have a vibe. I think interactions have a vibe as much as they have function, right? And so if it doesn't have a vibe, it just not appealing. It doesn't create the same sense. Same thing like a nice suit. A nice suit will make people look at you and talk to you different.
Yeah.
So
Make you
I
feel different. It'll make you feel different as well.
absolutely. And I even think about those times where office chairs were, prime real estate. 30 seconds after somebody is leaving for their last day, somebody's commandeering their chair.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. That happens. Yeah,
absolutely.
when we do liquidations, we'll be like, well, all these chairs have to be here, and inevitably they'll be, well, we're going to let them take them if they want them. They get addicted to their chair. It's important. And you
Absolutely.
hit on something, when you first started answering the question. I mean, the when I remember being young, starting in business, right, in my first job, most people have that one person or two people that they're like, I got to be that person, right? I want to be that guy. I want to be that lady. I want to be, my goal is to get to that level. I think,
Correct.
being in the office and, looking around at how they work and how they do things helps you really achieve that goal,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely.
And,
Absolutely.
and I remember I was 22, got a job, and I said, I really want to be this manager, but in order to be that manager, I have to emulate my manager. And so the best thing I can do is I know my manager comes in at 6:30. The other manager I'm trying to be comes in at 9. And that manager goes 6:30 to 5. The other manager is like 9 to cocktails late, who knows, right? And I didn't have a family at the time, and I was 22, and I said, well, I'm just going to be there all the time. When the manager gets there, the first manager or second manager leaves, I'm going to be the first one there, last one to leave.
Yeah.
And during that time, I was, and everyone's like, where are you? Yeah, well, I want to move up, and I did. I moved
Yeah.
up because
Yeah.
people saw
No,
that you.
that casts a shadow for your leaders. It really does.
Mhm.
Yeah. They see that. Yeah.
And I also was able to see how everyone worked, right? I was able to see who came in at what time, who brought what to the office, how they brought things to the office. Did they pack a lunch? Did they go out to lunch? Who were the conversations they were having? What was their downtime like? How did they work? How did they organize things? And I think, you don't see that if you're just always by yourself. Again, this is
Correct.
not to, I
Correct.
don't want anyone to think out there, oh, that I'm anti-hybrid or anti-homework, because I'm not. I'm definitely not.
Sure.
I think
Sure.
that it's a great thing. I think it's really helped us out. But I think also it's important, we're such a social being, it's really important to have that relationship and connection. And really the only way you can get it through the office in certain ways.
No, I
Actually,
second that. Yeah, I think wealth is wealth in the existential sense, not the tangible. I think it's transferred, and some of the best ways to transfer it is in person,
hmm
because
hmm
sometimes interactions aren't always conversations. Sometimes it's a subtle look. It's
right.
navigating certain things. Again, I mean, I have a good buddy of mine. We shared an office a couple years back, and we had a gentleman who for lack of a better word, he was disruptive. And so whenever he would come in, my buddy would cut me a look and we would kind of smile. And we took that smile from smiling there to smiling at lunches,
hmm
to eventually smiling over cigars. And so
Yeah.
there's something to be said. And it's I do a lot of studying because uh, I think when you think of the office, you need to involve, organizational psychology and things of that nature. And when you compare that to social media, where you really got sound bites of interaction, you got Harvard studies saying that, the concept of a friend is declining, and they give you stats about that. Office is the one place that you can have human interaction. You can kind of be reflective, and kind of see where you measure up in terms of dealing with people. So I think it's an asset where you have human connection, and then it's also a measure where you can see where am I developing. You know, something as simple as I say good morning, someone doesn't, and the person gets offended. And or I get offended, and so my question is, so why am I offended? Um, I, I don't have Sally's number. Sally and I don't go out to lunch, and Sally's not legislated to say hello to me. So she's in, and so why is that not water off a duck's back? Oh, you know what? It's not, because I have this thing going on at home. And so I'm proverbially kicking my cat before I get home. And so to me, because I like to be reflective, to me, all those things kind of interplay. And then me doing that homework helps me be clear when I have to be present for the people that really need me.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, you make great points as far as when you see someone in the office and they may not be willing to share something, but you just know they want to share it, right? On both
Correct.
sides, happy or
Correct.
sad, or you're not going to get that in a chat room,
Sure.
or in
Sure.
an email. You're not going to be able to see it. I have jokes a lot with my colleagues here, and I always do you ever notice how, depending on what your personality type is, that's how you read someone's email? Right? So if someone's always jovial and joking around, when you read their email, you're like, all right, I kind of get what they're saying, but maybe you don't get the exact point, but you know what kind of person he or she is, so you can read it that way.
Yes, I
On
see
the
what you're
other
saying.
side,
Yeah.
on the
Yes.
other side, you can
Yeah.
also, someone who's a real pain in the ass, right?
Correct.
You're
Correct.
like,
Correct.
oh, this guy, right? But they may
Yes.
not have meant it at
Yes.
all, right? It could
Yes.
be something as morning as
Yes.
good morning. You're like, what do you mean good morning?
Yeah, no, you're right. Because I have to take that I call it the deep breath. I have to take that
Right,
back. And a lot
right,
of times, I'll be honest, when I'm in the office, I'm giving certain people my second answer and not my first.
right,
You're
yeah,
absolutely right.
right.
Because I remember I was working one day, and I can do a little graphic design to get by, right? And so I was doing some graphic design for a client meeting at the Garden. And to your point, someone that's socially awkward comes by. And again, not my boss, he asked me, what am I doing? And then he critiqued the flyer,
Right.
because again, I mean, so he's asking, why is it saying Knicks and not Sixers, and so,
Mhm.
and the more I learned him, the more I appreciated he asked what's a lot of times we use a buffer, right? And it could be something subtle as a smile. Smile is a buffer.
Right.
He says what's right on his mind. And so
Mhm.
it doesn't put him over well. But I think he's, to me, to your point of being in the office, I think he's helped me grow in levels of communication and empathy.
Mhm.
Because when I first entered my life, I wanted to throw
Mhm.
him out the window,
Mm.
because not only was he disruptive, he seemed rude, but
Yeah.
he doesn't have a buffer,
Right.
Yeah,
We all know people like that, right?
correct, correct, correct.
Oh, that's great. So we were talking a little bit ago. You said over cigars. What's your favorite cigar? I'm pivoting on the top five. This always happens if everyone like the fast five is supposed to be fast. It's never fast because we always pivot in the
It's
different
all good.
questions.
My favorite cigars are Toro Fuente 858. Medium brown, nice slow smoke. So doesn't make you
Right.
feel green, and it gives you enough kickback to remind you that you're smoking a cigar and to take your
There you
time
go.
with it.
All right.
Yeah,
I'm writing it down because
sure,
I
sure.
will enjoy them every once in a while. But
And typically I pair those with a Guinness and
yes.
a single shot of Jameson.
No, now we're talking. Okay. I love it. I love it. Um, so in your opinion, and just to pivot here a little bit, Paul, I
Sure.
mean, you've obviously been in the business world for a long time. How has the culture changed, in your opinion, over the past decade in the office culture?
Well, I mean, office culture is reflective of culture.
Hmm.
Um, And I said earlier, and I don't know whether we're recording or not, but it's like when we go in the office, we try to act civilized, but it comes out. It comes out in a glare. It comes out in how a person walks away after interaction. I tend to think that we've gotten away from values.
Hmm.
To be preachy. I'm more of a traditionalist in terms of values.
Hmm.
Thinking of other people. Doing my own work because I've realized who I am as a person impacts not just my immediate family, but when I walk out the door. When I walk out the door, what ripple am I creating? And I think we've become a little insular in the last couple. I mean, we kind of see it in the headlines. Uh,
Hmm.
I think we've become trying to pick my words here. I think we've become dangerously emotionally immature.
Mm.
Um,
Great way to put it.
and so that results in a lot of conflict,
Hmm. Hmm.
unnecessary conflict, and so it makes more work for us, and it does a lot of bottlenecks because
I mean, it,
we're having two and three conversations that could, because to your point, like they should talk to Gary, but they're skipping Gary because they don't really like Gary and trying to circumvent Gary to go to John. I a couple months back I had something in the office where I found out that and you know what? The older you get, it's funny, man. We all have all these titles, but all it really boils down is that's the boss's friend, that's the boss's associate. Like that's really kind of what it kind of boils. He likes him, and so a person that was an executive assistant that grew to be the head of something didn't like another person who was a director. And so, based not on title but on position to the boss's teeth, they
hmm.
were peers.
Hmm.
And I interacted with the gentleman because he and I needed to interface to fill out RFPs. And she kept trying to get me in the gang where we gang up on him. And so one thing I realized, those gangs never last. And just like if when you watch Survivor, those alliances shift. First, it's we're ganging up on him. 3 months down the line, they're ganging up on me. So I didn't
Yeah.
participate.
Right.
But to your point, it's just evident of the culture because why didn't she just have a conversation with him? And then why not just email your boss and say, hey, these are the things? But to your point, it's people being emotional, and because I'm not dead to rights on this person underperforming, I make it a social issue that I try to tether to work.
I
And
think that you're 100% correct, and I think that the emotional response is something that is affecting the workplace, not only society but the workplace in general. I mean, my wife and I joke all the time. She's since kind of backed off a little bit, but she said, I don't understand why any of your friends like you. She goes, I listen to your conversations and all you do is make fun of each other. She's like, you make fun of
Sure,
him, he makes fun of you. And I go,
sure.
well, I said, I don't know if it's necessarily just a guy thing. I go, my best relationships, we are brutally making
Because
fun of each
it's
other,
so you took the words out my mouth, and just to play semantics, there's a level of access and vulnerability you guys give each other so you can do that.
Right.
And I think when you lose values and you lose boundary, you lose personal framing.
Mm-hmm.
And so that means that I don't know where to sit you.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I might be sitting people that belong in the metaphorical balcony of my life. I might be sitting them on the front row,
Mm-hmm.
and so I get these mixed results,
Right.
and I'm mad at them. But wait, I need to reevaluate, how am I framing, how am I filtering things in my life? It
Right.
always starts with me, and I think the thing we learn early on in our career when we get a little power is that some people call it the 30-minute rule, some people call it the next day when you're really heated, taking a beat to that email before you send it. I think sometimes we need to take a beat on the inventory. I think we need to take a beat on how we deal with people and how we value ourselves. Because I sometimes I think we don't value ourselves the way we should. And I think it goes beyond having a poor self esteem. I could have a positive self esteem, but I could be so naive in how other people are that to that point I place them in places that they shouldn't be sitting, and that goes back to emotional intelligence.
Yeah. And you kind of, when I first asked you the question a few minutes ago, I had thoughts in my head, but you've brought things to light for me too. I think one of the major changes in the culture is accountability. And I think that
It's gone. It's gone.
people are
Gone.
afraid to take accountability. And I'm reminded of when I was a young child, my grandfather always said there's truth in every joke, right?
Correct.
And if you're able to take someone's joke and actually look in the mirror and say, well, the reason why it was funny is because it's true,
Absolutely.
and not take offense to it, but really take accountability and say, all right, I probably have to get better at that, or maybe I
Sure.
should
Sure.
change that, or maybe someone was
Sure.
joking about it because they're okay with it, but they're asking you to change just a little bit, and rather than saying it in a way that maybe be too stern, they're joking about it. I think the office culture is such that you have to take more accountability. It's like
Correct.
that. Hey,
Correct.
this is you hear a lot of times, this isn't my job, or that's his job, or
Correct.
that's hers job.
Correct.
I don't think the fabric of this country was built on that, right? It was like, hey,
No.
we're going to do whatever it takes to make this successful. And if that means that I have to do a little bit more than what is under my proverbial job description, then I just do it. But now
If
it's
I
like,
can,
I ain't doing that.
if I can piggyback that, when I'm at work, I don't look at it as anything more. I mean, I look at it like the game of baseball. Like,
Hmm.
uh, who's a utility player? And so, even in my role in terms of business development, there's a point where I was walking court orders down to the court just because it needed to be done, and I actually had a relationship with the court. And then I'm relationship minded, not to be transactional. But I just think relationships make the life go a little bit smoother. I mean, who
Hmm.
doesn't want to walk into a place and someone smiles and says hello? I mean, that's a what 2.5 second of dopamine hit you didn't have before, right? And
Hmm.
so I don't know, man. I've always taken pride on doing what the agency I'm working for needed, no matter what it was. Because to me, when you're younger, that adds to your skill set, and when you're older, that adds to your network. So
Hmm. Yeah,
yeah,
what great way to put it. I mean, I think that is a big thing, in the culture. Aside from silly things like dress, right? I think dress has become more lax, but that's a big thing with how I've seen it coming in the early 2000s into now, as to how things have really changed.
But I think I look at that two ways, right? And I'm not going to say my way is law, but my way, I marry my way on what I see the people, to borrow from you. I marry my way with the people who I see that I want to emulate in terms of direction, and in terms of their ability to navigate life, right? And to the point of, we're just I think so. When people make jokes about I'm checking out of adulting, right? That that's leaving the fabric of the things we've talked about. That's leaving accountability. That's leaving those things. And so I think our dress reflects it. And it's weird, man, getting older, because some of the things I've said in my head when I see people, that might have been me at 13, 14, but I think there's certain conversations, and I own that I sound like a fuddy-duddy. There's certain conversations that I don't want to have with people that are not showing up a certain way in attire.
Yeah, of course.
Because I think attire, again, I mean, you could masquerade, but I think more often than not, attire communicates a level of competence.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. And I also think that it just kind of shows you what you're there to do, but
correct, correct,
that there's a time and a place and a way that, you should really dress or act, and everyone knows that. And, I think that that's, the culture, I will say, has been, I dress the way my clients do, right? So
sure,
if I'm going to a meeting with, you know, a certain demographic, lawyers, accountants, if I'm going to dress differently than if I'm
sure,
going
sure,
to someone who's starting a marketing firm. Like
sure,
it's
sure.
it's just, and it's not, I'm not disparaging either one. I'm just saying I think it's important to kind of
No, I'm
the
in the I'm
culture.
in the same I'm in the same stream with you.
Yeah.
I'm in the same stream with you.
I
So
think you feel the same if you're overdressed or underdressed. I think I've been equally uncomfortable underdressed as I have been overdressed. You walk in, you're
I,
like, oh
I
boy.
I'd rather be over. I'd rather be over. And I've learned this one years ago when I was a real estate agent, because I would always meet the first meeting. I'm always meeting you in a suit.
Yep.
First
Yep.
meeting.
Yep.
I can always dial it back.
Yep.
Um,
Yep. You're
but
right. You're right.
if
Take the
but if
jacket
I
off. Right.
you- or meeting two, I can go down to slacks in the shirt.
Right.
But if I've met you not showing a certain level of professionalism, and also attire can transfer confidence as well. So if
Mm-hmm.
I've communicated something in my first impression, it's kind of hard to get that back. So
Mm-hmm.
my mom had this saying, when you're younger and you don't like to wear coats in the winter. I know because you want to be quote unquote cool. She
I
said,
still don't like to wear coats.
I I've grown to love a good coat, man.
Yeah.
I'm kind of I like to have a muted flair. Oh, so there's nothing
There you
like a
go.
good camel coat over a suit, or a good I'll say sporty kind of puffer jacket that's two toned. Yeah, nothing like it. Nothing like it. So yeah, because at the end of the day, I'm still at work. I don't know who I'm gonna run into. I don't know who's gonna need my service. I don't know who's gonna need me to build out something. Um,
Mhm.
and so yeah, I think when I'm ready to retire, I think that may change. Um, but I think our lives should look like we're purpose minded. I think our lives should look like that we're considering the people that's around us. It's funny, man. Uh, Being a kid, you have one idea of what you think business is, right? And you see Scrooge McDuck, and he's swimming, he's swimming, yeah, he's swimming in the
This is
money and
gold
things
coins.
of that
Yeah.
nature. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Man, what was the stock movie when we were younger, man? Greed is good. I forget the name. I'm blanking on the name, and I
Uh,
apologize.
it was
Was it Wall
what was
Street?
it? Yeah, I thought it was Wall Street.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so you have these ideas of this is what it is, right? But what I've really found is great leaders serve. And
Mm-hmm.
the more I could expand my capacity and
Mm-hmm.
cast a vision to those that are willing to partner with me to
Mm-hmm.
be of service to people that want to trust me to do things with them,
Mm-hmm.
the more I can be of service. Now I'm sounding like Zig Ziglar. The more I can be of service to my family, and even my community. Because
Mhm.
I don't think things stop with just me. I'm not really a us four no more type of person. So
Yeah, no, I think that's a great way in closing too. I think that's a great way to really highlight the office. I mean, in order to be that leader, you kind of have to be willing to teach the younger generation as well, right? And I think that
sure,
they, meaning the next generation, the generation that's just coming into the office right now, they need that mentorship, and I got it from many people. I could, without naming names, I mean, I remember some really key individuals that I learned from that
sure,
I don't feel like the experience would have been the same if I didn't have the ability to sit, watch, work,
correct,
see how they do
correct,
things. And I think
correct.
it's really important for business in general moving forward. I think there the one thing that's constant, and I'm so like we sound old and like a lot of cliches, but the one thing is constant is everything always changes, right? And
Absolutely.
I've had the conversation on all aspects of my life, from my kids and the way that they play sports versus the way that I play sports. And, that could be a whole podcast episode on itself versus, you know, what we do in the office, how we work 20 years ago versus now, and what the future is going to look like. And, you have to be willing to adapt to change. And
Sure, sure,
if you don't adapt to change, you'll be forgotten. I mean, that's
sure.
just is what it is. And I think, if you look at people who are really, really successful, their business is vastly different from the day they started it.
Yeah.
They
You
might
know,
be in
I
the same way, but they're doing it way differently.
I am a faith guy, and change and innovation is even something I pray about to see.
Hmm.
Because we joke we're old, but we're being truthful, and truth is always relevant, right? And
Hmm.
so even great money guys, Jamie Dimon, they forecast, and I think it's helping younger people, and people who may have not had the mentorship, that there's a number of universal principles that we can borrow from money for our lives. So, how can you forecast money but not forecast your life?
Hmm.
And even with work, I mean, the honest thing about real high performers is high performance sucks sometimes. Like the grind of it sucks.
Mm.
Like working from 7 a.m. to 9 to kind of to get some momentum, doing it for 6 months to get some momentum for something. That sucks, right? But the the reward you see down the line is what you're working for, right? And it's just having many commitments. Same thing. I used to run track when I was in high school, and I was a sprinter, and the 400 sucked because the
Yeah.
400 wasn't short. And it's just making many commitments. All right, this sucks, but what do I want? All right, well, when my daughter gets out of college, I want her to have an option to work for me. And so
Mm.
that's something I hold in front of me. I want to be able to take care of so and so this way. I want to be able to do this. I want a cafe racer for the fall. So I can pull up to different type of fall events, and look at the water. Chill at a campfire. Cars don't go everywhere, so
Yeah.
what's that cafe racer look like? That's a whole new expense. The whole new
Hmm.
relationships I have to make. So it's just many commitments. What many commitments are we making to ourselves to be better today than we were yesterday? Or how can I be better this afternoon than I was right now?
I mean, perfectly said. Well said. And I thank you for your time. And I really appreciate you coming on. And I think that I'm looking forward to enjoying an 858 Toro Fuente with you at some point. Thank everyone for listening. Remember to believe in your office and make some noise quietly.
Your office isn't just where work happens, it's where culture is built, ideas are born, and teams come together. And if your workspace doesn't support the people in it, everything, well, just becomes harder. That's where Boomerang and Common Sense Office Furniture comes in, supporting local communities in Orlando, Florida, and the tri-state area, and everywhere in between. Boomerang and Common Sense both specialize in high-quality pre-owned office furniture that doesn't just look good, it performs. Whether you're furnishing a growing team, redesigning for hybrid work, or just need furniture that actually works for how people collaborate, Boomerang and Common Sense make it easy and affordable, sustainable, functional, built for real workplaces. Visit boomerangofficefurniture.com to see how the right furniture can transform the way your team works.